This is my country, my damn country.
All right, so welcome to our another edition of JustIn Lithuania. And it's a show where we talk to goddamn immigrants that come to Lithuania and steal our jobs. No, today it is my great honor to speak to the ambassador of the Israel to Lithuania, Amir Maimon. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Am I pronouncing your name correctly?
Amir Maimon.
Amir Maimon.
Yeah.
All right. So, how do you like it in Lithuania, sir? You have been here for a while.
Yeah, for more than 4 years. I'm the first resident ambassador. We opened the embassy in January 2015, and I love it.
So far, so good?
It was always good.
How's the winter treating you?
The weather.
The winter.
The winter, the
Yeah.
weather. Well, I can tell you a funny story. When I started my position in January, so as I said, I'm the first, so I didn't have a residence nor embassy, so I was staying at the Novotel.
All right.
You know, in Gedimino, Gatave.
Get them in the street, yeah.
Yeah. And it was, I arrived on January the 26th.
Oh, that's a great time to travel to
and
Lithuania.
I was a bit surprised that around 8 o'clock it was still dark. And the street lights were still on. And, you know, first day, second day, third day, fourth day. But after 2 weeks, I decided that I need to ask someone, Kur Saule, where is the sun? And people looked at me and smiled and said, you know, in the winter, when you see the sun, you rarely see the sun, but when you see the sun, you remember the date. And I must tell you that, yes, it may be a bit cold, but in the end of the day, it's neither the sun nor the temperatures that bring light or warmth to our life. It's in the end of the day, the people. And the people right from day number one were very kind and very hospitable and very warm. And the last 4 years simply flew. And
Well, time flies when you're having
time
fun.
flies, yeah.
All right, let's talk about your background a little bit. You were born into a military family. Your dad was in military, right?
True.
Right. You were born in Yemen?
No, my both parents were born in Israel. My late father in 1929, years before the establishment of the State of Israel. My late mother in 1931 in Jerusalem. And their parents immigrated to Israel from Yemen.
Mm-hmm.
My parents, my father family immigrated from Yemen in the early 20th century, 1906. They left Yemen, and one day when I asked my father, how come that your grandpa decided one day to simply leave Yemen and to immigrate to Israel? He looked at me and said, it's all because of his love to Zion. Zion is another name for the state of Israel.
Yeah.
So yes, and right from his childhood, my late father joined the Haganah. That was a paramilitary movement that was fighting to keep the Israeli settlements at that time safe. He lost his brother in 1947 in a clash with Arab extremists, not too far from his hometown. And since the establishment of the State of Israel in 1948, on May 14, he was part of the military that was defending Israel borders in so many wars.
All right. What was it like to grow up in a military environment? Like, was your father tough?
Well,
Was it like a lot of discipline?
Well, let
growing
me correct you. There is no such a thing as a military environment. There is only one sad thing: you rarely see your father.
Oh,
And
okay.
my late mother told me that for quite some time I was calling my neighbors, who was a male, father, because I saw my father very rarely. And you know what? I have a granddaughter who is 2.5 years old, and I see her rarely. And lately, when she sees me, she only smiles. She's not willing even to come to me because she doesn't know me. So I now understand it from a different perspective.
Oh man, does it break your heart at all?
Oh yeah, especially when my daughter is teasing me. She asks my granddaughter, "Go and kiss grandpa," and she looks at her and says, "Nenore, nenore." But then she teased me and said, "Okay, so go and hug Luna. Luna is the pet, the dog," and she immediately goes and hugs the
Oh,
pet.
that is hardcore.
Yeah,
that
it
is
is.
hardcore stuff.
It is.
But then again, I do appreciate some dark humor. So
Yeah.
what was your childhood growing up?
Well, it was.
Because that was
We were moving a lot. I had to change 3 elementary schools because of my father military service. I started first grade in a small town by the name Rishon LeZion, and then we moved to Beersheba, the capital of the southern part of Israel. And my father was the commander of the Arava Valley, and then later he was the commander of the Gaza Strip. He was a brigade commander.
wow.
And it was tough. We saw him very rarely, and from time to time, as he was missing us a lot, so he took me as I was the boy. I have 2 sisters, one older and one younger. So I was the boy, so he was taking me for weekends in military bases,
Oh.
in Enyav or other bases that he was posted in. And I remember that we respected him very much, and when he was coming home once in 2 weeks for weekends, so Friday was usually very quiet because he was tired, and we were not allowed to play or to sing. But then on Saturday, we were all looking for Saturdays, and he was taking us to travel, and that's how I got to know my country, which I love very much. And his passion and love to the country was something that I hope I represent to.
So that was your family time, the Saturday.
Yeah.
Did you understand, like at that point, you were a little boy, did you understand that your dad is in war?
Well, it's not that you have a daily wars. I understood that he's.
But did you understand the kind of job that your dad had to do?
Yeah, I did because.
Did you realize the whole complexity of the situation, that he's out there and he's put in his life for his country?
Yeah, and especially when I had to visit him in hospital as he was injured during his
Oh, really?
military service.
What happened?
It was a car mine, and he was seriously injured, and he was hospitalized. And I remember the day that they came to tell my mother in the morning, and she was whispering with a military officer who happens to be a family friend in the kitchen, and I didn't really understand what they're talking about. And then I saw my mother crying,
Wow.
and they told us that he was injured in a car accident. Later, we understood that it was not the case.
Wow, well that's tough.
Yeah.
Were you a good student at school?
No.
No?
No.
Were you a rascal?
I was good enough. Good enough to not to bring the teachers to call my parents. Good enough to pass the exams.
Well, that's
And
smart.
very happy to do what I want.
Well, that's just smart. That's like, just enough is just right. That's a sign of smart.
Well, that's some people said that I was lazy.
Yeah, well, but then again, lazy is there's one thing when you're lazy, and there's other thing when you find nothing to have you interested in.
Yeah. I was reading a lot. I was sometimes changing 3 books on one day, during one day in the library. And I was
So
very
that's not
independent.
lazy.
When I was, when I reached age of gymnasium, I decided, probably because of my father, that I would like to kind of follow his footsteps. And there was a very prestigious gymnasium in Israel, the military academy, and I decided to apply. And my mother didn't want me to study there because it's a boarding school, and she didn't want to have two soldiers at the same
one
home.
is enough, right?
Yeah, but she let me go and do the exams because she didn't believe that I would pass the exams.
Surprise, surprise.
Surprise, surprise. Yeah, this is true.
And when you went to boarding school, how did you take the whole getting yourself out, away from your family, spending time in the boarding school? Was it tough?
Yeah, today when I think about it, I think that it was very tough because it's not a regular boarding school. It's a boarding school of people that had to pass many exams. The admission process is very tough because simultaneously to the military training and studies, you are also attending one of the most prestigious gymnasium in Israel. And during the day, you study with civilians and others, and in the afternoon, you return to the military base, and you are surrounded only with male company, and it can be very tough. It can be very tough, and the demands are very high. The physical pressure is very high.
Did you have to do a lot of drills?
Oh, yeah. I was... I'm still in a very good physical shape, but I was a very good... the physical exercises are very popular.
How many push-ups could you do at your peak?
Well, at my peak, you couldn't count.
Because they were too fast?
No, yeah, too fast, and the numbers are high.
Right, so, and at that point, you knew that you want to be a military man?
At that point, I felt that there are some sort of expectations because military service in Israel is compulsory.
Oh, yeah.
And because of my my father's military background, and he was a well-known general in the Israeli army, I felt kind of pressure that I need to prove myself. Maybe it was wrong feeling, and it was just about me, but that's how I felt. And that's why when I joined the military academy and then I had to join the military service, I knew that I have to do good.
And did you have to do just a little better than all the other kids? Because when your dad is like a famous general, it puts pressure on you, and your teachers, like your superiors, they knew who your father was. So did they expect more from you just because of that reason?
Well, in the beginning, I tried to hide it. But, it's...
well, you have the last name.
Yeah, that's right. It's not that easy to hide it.
Yeah.
I was fool enough to believe that people did not know. Many did not, but many also did know who my father was. And it's not that they expected me to do more. That was my feeling, that I need to prove myself, that I'm there because of me and not because of my father.
Oh, yeah.
And, in the beginning it was very tough, and then I became an officer, a platoon commander, and later I became a Special Forces company commander. And only then I suddenly understood that I'm doing a big mistake by hiding him. He's my father, first and foremost. And when I started my position as a company commander, it was everybody knew that if the company commander is going to stay on Saturday, so his dad is going to come and visit him. And they didn't add the rank nor the position that he was holding. And he was coming to visit me like any other father that was visiting his children. And we also had very tough times because in 1982, when we were engaged in the war in Lebanon, we were still, we were both in the army, and I was a deputy or battalion commander. And during the first day, many of my colleagues, including the battalion commanders, were killed. And during the first hour, It was unclear whether the battalion commander was killed or I was killed. And he was sitting in the headquarters, hearing in the radios all the exchange of fires and the speculations about who was killed and who was not.
Oh, damn.
And
That was some hard times for your mother.
my mother didn't know, and we never told her.
Really?
Yeah.
You kept it a secret?
Of course.
Oh, man, you're a good son.
No, she never knew about.
And you were like the toughest of the tough. You were a paratrooper.
Yeah.
Like the elite forces, the Red Berets.
Yeah, that's true.
How hard is it to go through the training to become a paratrooper? Because like it's like the elite forces, so they push you to the very limit. What was the most like difficult part of the training that you had?
You know, physical challenges can always be overcome.
Yeah, but it's all about the.
It's all about the spirits, and it's all about the mentality, but it's also a lot about the people that are surrounding you. And in the military service, I learned the real meaning of friendship, comradeship, what it's all about. The understanding that we are there to help each other. We are there to make sure that nobody will be left behind, by all means. And this is a feeling that brings you and gives you forces that you never believed that you have such forces.
Yeah. But that's the thing, like, you know, the compulsory military service in Israel. And we have this thing in Lithuania where we reinstated the compulsory military service. And right at that very moment, we realized that we have a bunch of weak people in Lithuania who don't, they're like, why should I go to the military service? Do you think that the compulsory military service is a good way to become a stronger man with a greater love to your country? Because in Lithuania there are a lot of people that don't want to go, and I think that's the problem. I think we should all go.
Well, I have a different perspective about what is going on here in Lithuania. But when in 2015, and if not mistaken in May, it was decided to reintroduce conscription, I was interviewed a lot by the media. As you rightly mentioned, compulsory service is part of our life since the establishment of the State of Israel. Yeah. And I think that what happened in 2015 here in Lithuania, and this is my own observation, the youngsters that were about to be recruited were quite unprepared. This is not something that you can tell someone from yesterday to tomorrow. Listen, tomorrow you are going to serve your country for 9 months. In Israel, it's a way of living. It's a set of mind. Everybody knows that when they will complete gymnasium, high school, they will have to join the military. You'll be surprised to find so many youngsters running in their hometown streets or along the beaches as part of their preparation and desire to
just
improve
getting ready.
Exactly. So I think that here in Lithuania, and that's according to what I know, you have more volunteers than you really need for the quotas that are every year.
This year, I think they came a little short, but yeah.
And I know of people, and one of them is here in the studio, that are also doing their military service during weekends, voluntarily.
Oh, yeah.
So I think that for us, the military service is not just about security and defense. Military service is about personal developments. It's about values, responsibility, creativity. It's about setting rightly your personal priorities, your national priorities. And on top of everything, I think, and that's what the military service was for me, is not just about what the country can give me, but also what I can give back to the country.
And that's the exact point that I want to make, that if a kid is lazy, and if a kid is he doesn't he just decides to sit on his ass on the couch and play video games, and he doesn't want to learn, he doesn't want to go to a university, I think the parents of the kid should just take him and put him in the military. And he'll come back a better man, because it's about the personal development, as you told.
Well, I didn't push my children when they were about to join the army, and my two boys completed their compulsory service. I took them to a serious discussion. And by the way, they never really understood what I did in the army, nor what my father did in the army.
You never told them?
Well, we told them, but they were not impressed. they were not impressed.
Oh, man.
Yeah, and it was so frustrating.
How spoiled are your
Yeah.
children?
But listen, when they
Your
started,
father is a war hero.
when they started their military service, only then I started receiving telephone calls, WhatsApp
Oh, you got
messages.
your respect, finally.
Exactly. Finally, they understood.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I told them, and for me it was very important, because I didn't want them to be under unnecessary pressure as I was before joining the army because of my father. And I told them, listen, guys, I'm your father. I love you. It is your decision what you will be doing in the army. Just do your best, no matter where you will be going. So I didn't force them to join combat units, which they did, but it was their decision. And they could have chosen other job in the army, and I would respect it, exactly as I respect their today's decision. So yes, parents can force, can push. I think that for me as a parent, it's more important to be as an example when it comes to values, when it comes to beliefs, and not to push them to do things that they don't really feel like, that they don't believe in.
Well, that's a good point as well. So you had your part of the action, like the battle action. How hard is it to come back to civil life after you've seen the battle? Do you have because they do have the post-traumatic stress disorders and all the nasty things. Is it hard to come back to a peaceful life?
Well, the first thing that crossed my mind when you were asking me is that you never really come back. Part of you is still there, because unfortunately I lost some of my friends, very close friends, soldiers and others, and I visit their graves from time to time. I talk with their families quite often. So they remain part of you, and you cannot separate this part from your own life. So this is why you don't really come back. But life is, strong than any other thing, and the passion to live the life is probably stronger. So yes, I live my life, but I also remember the ones that will ever and forever remain young.
So when was the time then you decided to end your military career and to pursue the diplomatic career?
Well, that's a very funny story. I don't think that I ever decided. One day, we had a well-known Israeli singer, like Mamontovas here in Lithuania.
Oh, that big?
Bad big. Arik Einstein.
Okay.
And he had this song, I'm sitting on the fence, יושב על הגדר, one leg here, the other leg is there, one leg is here, the other leg is there. And I was listening to his song on the radio. And then suddenly this thought crossed my mind that maybe it's about the time for me to rethink my future. Now, talking about 1987, I was about to complete my bachelor degree in Tel Aviv University. And this time I did study. I was a very good student.
Okay.
And
Well, that's after the military.
yeah, no,
training,
I was
so-
still I was still in the military.
Yeah, but that's the
They gave
school
me
was
a year-
before the military
Yeah,
training.
yeah.
And
They give
that
me
one.
they give me a year break. I was already a colonel, a very young one, and they gave me a year break. And I was, after so many field positions, so I studied in Tel Aviv University, and it was wow, what a year!
Did you
A
enjoy
military
your-
car, a salary. I was doing lots of fun.
on the top of the world?
Yeah.
And you were in Tel Aviv. That's
Yeah,
like the
yeah.
party capital of the world.
Yeah, that's true. So
Did
I
you-
was partying a lot.
Did you party a lot?
Yeah.
What kind of party did you like? Did you go to clubs?
We don't have clubs, but we have very happy bars.
Oh,
So, and once a week, there was also musical, live music, and people were singing together Israeli Hebrew songs, dancing on the tables, and it was all about music, drinks, and good
dancing
food.
on the tables.
Yeah.
That's how you know the party is going well.
Yeah, yeah.
People dancing on the tables.
I was dancing on the tables.
Were
yeah.
you single at that time?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, so even better.
Yeah.
The greater the party.
Yeah, yeah. So, and then I decided that I concluded my studies, and then immediately I was appointed as a battalion commander in the Central Officer Schools, and I started my position. And then one day I saw an ad in the Israeli newspaper that the Foreign Office is looking for young diplomats. I said, I'm not young, but I can try, because the age limit was 33, and I was
And you were
about 30.
about 30.
So I decided to try, and once again, people were telling me, come on, thousands are applying and only very few are accepted. And I said, that's
even better.
Even better. Because, and somehow I filled the forms, not even knowing what this diplomacy is all about. And during 1989, I had to pass many exams and interviews, and in the end of the process, I was told that I was accepted to the cadet course.
Okay.
Now,
Was that a surprise for you?
it
Were
was a
you-
surprise.
Were you expecting to get selected?
It's not about the selection, but more about the decision to give up a very senior position. I was responsible for, as a battalion commander,
Oh, yeah.
for the life of over 400, 500 soldiers, officers, a budget of several million US dollar. And to start everything from the beginning, it's not that easy. I'm talking about starting everything from
scratch.
from step number one as a private. It's not that easy. But I said, yes, I
Oh,
will.
yeah, and you're not the boss anymore.
Yeah.
You're not the boss. You had many subordinates,
Yeah.
and now you're just a regular Joe.
So to make the whole story short, when I told my superiors in the army that I'm going to retire and join the cadet course, they looked at me with
They thought you were
disbelief.
crazy.
Exactement. And said, come on, stop it. You want promotion? We'll give you a promotion. You're going to be the next brigade commander of the paratroopers. I said, no,
Oh.
I'm serious. I would like to explore the possibility. I said, no, you're joking. So in the end of the day, they decided to borrow me to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So I didn't retire. I was borrowed to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and I started my cadet course in October of 1989. So it was a very funny but very convenient situation, because on one hand, I was not a military officer, but as I was borrowed, so I was getting a salary of a colonel, and I still had a military car. During
Pretty good
times
deal,
that the
if you ask
cadet,
me.
yeah, that was a good deal. Yeah, that's true.
All right, and at that time it was 1989,
That's correct.
and let's talk a bit about Beta Israel. The guys. It's just a magnificent story where nobody knew about this, but there was a tribe in Ethiopia who were, as they found out, they are still considered to be one of the 12 original Jewish tribes. And they were there in, they didn't have Talmud, but they only, they had the Torah, but they were Jewish. They were Ethiopian Jewish. and they found them, and they didn't believe that it was like a myth, right?
Well, the legend tells that when that King Solomon,
Yeah.
who was known for his respect for women, when he was visited by Queen Sheba, so the legend says that they also spent the night together, and that's how the Ethiopian Jews tribe was, started its history. There are also other explanations how come in the end of the day Jewish people found themselves in Ethiopia. When I was asked by our Director General to open the embassy in Ethiopia, not as an ambassador, but to open because they were telling me that we need a commander in Ethiopia, and you are the only commander we know in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So I was sent to Ethiopia with one mandate, but with two main objectives.
Right.
To open an embassy, literally, and
For the exact reason to...
for ordinary diplomatic relationship.
Oh, okay.
But the second mission was to organize the Jewish people that were gathering in Addis Ababa, the capital. You should understand that the Jewish people, or the majority of the falashas, the Beta Israel, as you rightly referred to them, lived about 500 miles north to Addis Ababa, the capital, in an area by the name Gondar. And they used to live in kaimes, in villages, very primitive villages, in huts which they call tukuls, made of wood and straw, no running water, no electricity. And when they heard that the Israelis are going to open an embassy, they simply, and it sounds like a fiction, but this is true, they left everything and they marched to Addis Ababa because they believed that the Israelis are going to open an embassy just in order to take them back to Israel, to Jerusalem. They always believed that one day the Israelis will come and take them back home, back to Jerusalem.
Yeah, because but then again, they had a very serious situation out there, because the civil war was in the making, and they had to flee. Like they were pressured by the environment to do that.
They were pressured mainly by the economic situation. They were not subject to any suppression or risk from the rebels, because the rebels, the joint forces of the Eritreans and the Tigrans, were fighting the central government, the ruler, Colonel Mengistu Haile Mariam. So they were not under any threat. They were simply hoping that the Israelis, once will take them to Israel, will also make sure that they will live in better conditions.
What was the Israel's point of view at that point? Like, what was the official message of these Israelis? Like, did they want to take the Jews in? Yeah.
Well, the essence of the state of Israel is that every Jew, no matter where he or she lives, has the right to live in the Jewish state, in the state of Israel. We don't have a constitution, but the first law, basic law that was adopted by the Israeli Knesset, the Israeli Seimas, parliament, was the right of return. Every Jew, by birth, has the right to immigrate to Israel and to live in Israel. And not just to immigrate to Israel, but also to receive incentives that will help him or her to settle, to better absorb, to find a job, education, medical care, social cares, and more.
So that was a real test to this rule, because there were 20,000 of them. Am I correct?
Altogether, there were about 20,000, yeah.
Yeah, and they made this trip. It was a brutal trip. Like they were walking like 30 days to the capital, like to the embassy. And you were coordinating this whole extraction.
Well, I was coordinating their departure from Addis.
Right.
That was an air operation which lasted about 36 hours. And when they reached Addis Ababa, we didn't know, of course, when the central government will allow us to take them to Israel. We asked them, but
Yeah, because you had the Operation Moses in '84, where you got the plane full of the Ethiopian Jews back to the Israel, and Sudan just closed the borders, right?
well, that's right. In 1980, in the middle of the 80s, the Ethiopian Jews were marching from Gondar area and other places in Ethiopia towards Sudan territory, where Israeli airplanes, military airplanes, were landing and taking them to Israel. And at a certain point, the Sudanese stopped the operation because it was reported in the media. So we had a clue about the people that were left behind as we obtained information from the people that immigrated to Israel during the Moses operation, during the first operation. So it was easier for us to identify the ones that were eligible to immigrate to Israel. So when they arrived to Addis Ababa, we had to take care of them, to look after them, and we provided them with housing, education, medical care, etc., etc. And simultaneously, we conducted a very tough negotiation with the Mengistu government, asking them to let us take the Jews, which they didn't.
Is it true that you had to bribe them?
We had to pay them.
Well, that's a nice way of putting it.
Well, they made a very interesting argument. Well, it's okay if you'll take the Ethiopian Jews to Israel, but if they would be using, for example, Ethiopian Airlines, they would have to purchase round-trip ticket. You would have to issue them passports, and it's costly. So they made a calculation and reached, in the end of the day, there was an agreement that they would be paid $35 million.
So pretty much you had to pay the ransom.
Well, but guess what? They never got the money.
You screwed them out of their money?
But not because we didn't pay.
Why?
Oh,
wait, because the rebels took over.
So the $35 million was used by the provisional government that was formed right after the occupation of Addis Ababa on May the 28th, 1991.
Right, and the amazing Operation Solomon, where you, I don't know if it has any precedence in the modern history. Like 14,000 people in one day you just took to the planes and brought back to Israel?
Yeah.
14,000.
We started the operation on Friday morning, 7 o'clock in the morning. It was May the 24th, 1991. And I remember how shaky my hand was when I was giving the green light to all the forces on the ground to start the operation.
What were the dangers at that point?
Well, it was not. There was no real dangerous. It was the very special feelings, the emotions that comes up. That wow, it's going to happen, and words cannot describe how I felt when I saw the two Israeli airplanes descending for landing. That was the time that all my questions that I had before about what Israel is all about, what is the meaning of being Jew, were answered very in a second. I was so proud and so happy that it's going to happen. And I can tell you that I was also very sad when the last airplane took off, because it was decided to leave only 4 people there, because they knew that the rebels are going to occupy the city. Somehow they decided to leave me there. And once again, I found myself in the midst of a war, but this time not my war. And I had to hide when the city was occupied on May the 28th, 3 days after we completed the operation.
Were you in any danger at that point? Like, what would happen if the rebels caught you?
Well, How to tell? Because they didn't.
Okay, fair point. Fair point. And like the Jewish Ethiopians, they just went onto the landing ground, and they just got on the planes and they left, and without like just the shirt on their back. No, you know.
Yeah,
but they couldn't carry anything. They
True.
were like, I think.
But you're simplifying the process. They had to come to the embassy, and it was really impossible to get inside the embassy because when the ordinary Addis Ababa civilians heard that we are going to take them to Israel, they all gather around the embassy compound.
Oh, they were trying to get out.
Exactly.
As well?
So, and it was very, very difficult for us to make sure that only those who are entitled, eligible, and have the ID that we provided them, only them should enter to the embassy compound. And then we provided transportation.
That was a hard vetting process.
That's true.
How did you tell them apart? Like how, what was the main thing for you to tell them apart, like if they're just Ethiopian or Jewish Ethiopian?
Well, the immigration to Israel, as I said, is based on the Israeli law, the right of return.
Right.
And the Ethiopian Jews that came from the northern part, after their right was verified, were given an ID card, that enable them to get into the embassy compound, enable them to get medical assistance, to get some allowances so they will be able to buy food and some other services that were provided by the so many agencies and organizations that were involved with the Ethiopian Jews community. So that was the practice, and when they reached the embassy compounds, they had to present the ID, and they were allowed to get in. So those who didn't have this ID couldn't do it.
Oh man, but it's such a huge operation. They were walking for like 500 kilometers. Then they got onto the camp. Then they waited. Then they got onto the planes, and then they left. 14,000 in one day, and you still have the record of the 1,000 people a plane.
747, flight. Yeah,
747, 1,000 people. Did you know that? Are you thinking of suing Ryanair for stealing your business model? Because they're doing the same thing. they're just stacking people into planes. I think they stole your idea.
Well, let them register their accomplishment in the Guinness record book.
All right. And after everything was done, what was the feeling? Like when you got your people back to the motherland, back to the promised land. Well, no one has ever done anything like that.
It felt good.
Oh, okay.
It felt good.
You're a simple man. Oh, it felt good.
Yeah,
okay.
It felt good. It felt good. I was so proud to be part of a nation that is doing, will do, and is doing whatever in its power in order to save their own people. So, yeah.
Nice. And after that, when did you leave Ethiopia?
In 1992, I left Ethiopia. I moved to London.
London, yeah.
For 3 years. And
well, that was different. Have you ever been to London before?
Yeah. Yeah, in my first trip was in the end of the 70s, in 1979.
Oh.
I guess that you were still in the process of...
Not in the process.
Not even.
My dad was still in the partying process.
Okay. Dancing on the table.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Still dancing on the table.
So that was I took a break, a one month break from my military service. I was a company commander, and I traveled for 1 month to Europe. And my last destination was London.
When was the first time you heard the name Lithuania, apart from the geography class?
Mm-hmm. I'm not sure that I heard it during my geography classes.
Well, because yeah,
I
because we had our
yeah, you
our
were not
our friendly neighbors managed to
That's
keep
correct.
our name a secret.
I was the director of Europe in my last position in the Israeli Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and part of my responsibilities were also the Baltic, the 3 Baltic states, along with many other countries. And if I'm not mistaken, it was in 2013 that I visited Vilnius for about even not 24 hours. And that was it.
That was it.
Yeah.
What was your first impression of Vilnius during those 24 hours?
Well, I was, it was a direct flight, so I landed, it was Wizz Air, direct flight, so I landed early in the morning. I didn't see much. And I remember the morning was cold and dark.
Oh yeah, Lithuania.
Yes, but I was taken from one place to another. I had some meetings. I visited the Seimas and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And I remember the very good lunch in Neringa restaurant.
Neringa,
Yeah, I remember what I had. I had the beef stroganoff.
Beef stroganoff.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Neringa is gone now. That's it. They're rebuilding.
Neringa will come back.
Well, hopefully, because I really like the Kiev Kiev cutlet.
I like the Jurate.
Jurata?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, with the thing.
Yeah.
Okay. What other Lithuanian dishes do you like?
Viskas. Everything.
Everything.
Yeah,
Are you a fan of potatoes?
I'm a fan of good food.
Well, that's a very diplomatic way
No,
of saying that.
no. So I
putting
like
it.
the, you have, it's like saying, do you like bulveni belini? Yeah, I do. Man labe patinka. But depends on how you make them.
Only
Some
the good
places they
ones.
make it too oily, and some others they make it very delicate. And yeah,
What do you have a place where you like to eat bulvini blini?
well, I had
Because I have a recommendation.
good. So I'm open for recommendation. By the way, my people know my passion for food, and I'm traveling a lot in Lithuania. And I have my special places for different dishes, even though they're not.
Let's give them a shout out.
Uh,
What kind of? Okay, let's do
But
some.
they're not necessarily Lithuanian dishes. For example,
Absolutely, but let's do some advertising.
Oh, okay.
What kind of places in Lithuania do you like?
oh, I like all, but restaurants-wise.
Yeah.
So if you'll travel to Ukmergė,
Is it still there?
It's still there,
Okay.
Ukmergė. Vilnius Gatave, there is a place by the name Užupienė.
Užupienė?
Yeah, and they
Okay.
have, for me, the best goulash siruba.
Okay.
Very good.
Duly noted. Užupienė.
Užupienė.
Okay.
And then if you go to, there was a place, really a great place. They closed it in Kernave.
Kernave, yeah.
Kernave. There was a kind of kavine, and they had the best shashlikas, but also very good bulveni belini, very thin ones, which
I like those too. Like
yeah,
the thin ones. Yeah.
not the thick and the greasy, but really the thin one, and this is really wonderful. For Spurgas, I'm going to Spurgini in Kaunas.
That's the classic. That's the classic.
It's not just classic; it's the best.
Yeah, because they've been around for forever. Like I think they first built the Spurgine and then
That's
the
true.
Kaunas city around it.
Yeah, and one of my favorite places, both here in Vilnius as well as in Klaipėda, it's Ridikai.
Mm-hmm.
They have the Toscana, and they have the very, very good home and fresh dishes.
That's one of the new wave restaurants that they have. Like we had the old restaurants like Neringa and like Stikle and all the fancy restaurants. And the Ridike is like the new wave where they opened later on, and they're really good.
And even though they are not located in the center, they are very, very popular.
Oh yeah,
because,
it's always full.
Yeah. So, and there are many other places. There is this very nice kavine in between Panevėžys and Šiauliai. I forgot the name, but they have very good harčos siruba. And of course, I have my place in Trakai for kibene and for the borokeli salotos and for the very and many other good dishes.
All right.
I like very much the silke, and the herring is very good.
Yeah. And the place that I wanted to tell you about is there's this in Užupis in Polocko Street. There's Šnekutis. It looks like an abandoned homeless, like an abandoned house where homeless people live. But and you walk inside and it's like all well, it doesn't have the but it's very authentic, and there they have like the best Lithuanian dishes.
Really?
Yeah.
Because also in the corner they have it's not abandoned, but just near the monument, the
the
Angelo.
angel.
So in the corner you can find nice kuldune, and then on the right you have this Užupis pizzeria. They have very
Pizzeria.
good breakfast.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I have to say it because one of my coworkers' dad owns the place, so I have to say only good things about it.
Okay.
No, it is like really, really good.
It's a good place.
Yeah, it is a good place.
And the breakfasts are good.
What's the one Lithuanian tradition that you like the most?
I like very much the Jonines. It's not a modern Lithuanian tradition. This is more a pagan tradition.
Oh yeah, it goes way back.
Yeah, but I like the whole story behind it. As it started as the rasa, which means the dew, and the three most important elements: fire, wind, and fire, land, and the water. And the mountain dew represent the water.
Yeah.
And also, I like the tradition of the markets, the turgus. We are now Kazuko Moge. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
We don't have something similar in Israel.
Have you heard some of the traditions that we have on the great festival of Užgavėnes?
Of course. I was very active on 2 years ago. Was for the first time I heard about the tradition, and I love it. I love the pagan tradition to scare the winter and to make
you know how
winter
they do
disappear.
You surely heard how they do it. They dress up as gypsies and Jews, and they scare the winter away.
Yeah. They dressed up as ugly Jews, you mean?
Yeah.
And they not only dressed up as ugly Jew, but also sing some songs that are not very friendly to the neighborhood.
It was like I grew up with this tradition, and I never realized how bad it is. Then again, and when I see people still dress up like they're like, we're Jews, would give us some money, and we have that tradition still, like in some parts of Lithuania, we still have that tradition.
Well, first of all, thank you for bringing it up. And 2 years ago, a bit more, I was for the first time introduced to the tradition and the way you celebrate this festival. And I decided to do something. I decided to write a post. I'm kind of, it's really not me. I never believed that I will expose my life and my thoughts to all. But since I started my position here, I decided that it's very important for me to be as active as I can in the social media.
Right.
So I wrote a post, and as I don't believe in general in accusation, I don't believe that accusation can be a form of education, I decided to write a very positive post, praising the festival, the tradition, and urging people to celebrate it in such a way and manner that neither Jews nor any other minorities will be offended. Somehow, 2 years ago, it created, it led to a very heated public discussion, and I was interviewing the media, and one of your colleagues was asking me, why do? And I said to him, okay, let me ask you a question. How would you feel if tomorrow in Israel, the Israelis will celebrate a local holiday and they will portray Lithuanians in a very ugly way. He told me, well, I'll be very angry. I said, okay, so I rest my case. And
We have that festival in Great Britain. It's called Lietuvių Joninės. All the Lithuanians get really drunk and show the ugly side of Lithuanians. So we're trying to ban that as well.
well, if you do it yourself, it's okay. But if others are doing it for you, that's a different story.
Definitely. But you got someone to oppose you on this one?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Really?
Not me. It's and I explain it's not about me. And yes, some people were saying, but this is our tradition, and it's
Yeah.
not about the Jewish people, and that's how we used to do it for so many years, and that's why we should continue. And last year, I did another thing. I went to Rumšiškės, and I met the director of the museum, and we both issued a statement. Once again, urging people to celebrate, but also asking people to respect each other. And if I can judge based on the recent survey that was made on how people celebrate Užgavėnes, yes, you're right. Some people still use the ugly Jewish image to scare the winter,
Yeah.
but the numbers are going down and down.
Well, it's just the whole it's just I'm truly sorry, but just the whole idea, it's so archaic. Like it's so ancient. Like we dress up like Jews and gypsies and we scare the winter. It's like it's so insulting. It's so unsensitive. It's funny. It's like how can you ever be so stupid to stick with this tradition and to say like this is our tradition. We have to keep our traditions. And like, hey, you're living in the 21st century. What the hell are you doing? And they're still doing it.
Yeah, but the figures are marginal, and that's
yeah.
And
We're
I
getting
guess
rid of
that your comments were addressed to the listeners and the viewers, and not to me, because I'm convinced that this is not the way to celebrate.
You don't dress up as an ugly Jew on Užgavėnes?
No,
go around asking for money?
as a proud Jew.
Your loss. All right. You know what? The most fun I had. I have a friend here in Vilnius. He's a Jew, and he invited me for Shabbat. And that is like the most beautiful tradition that you have. Like this is I think what we're lacking in Lithuania, because we don't have family dinners. And on Shabbat, you don't work. You sing, you eat, you enjoy the company of your family. Are you very religious? Like, are you?
I'm secular.
You're secular. So, do you still do Shabbat?
Oh yeah, I'm secular, but I do follow the tradition.
That's
I do not
such
follow
a
all
nice
the commands because for observing Jews, so they are forbidden to do 39 type of works during Shabbat.
Oh yeah.
They cannot light a cigarette, they cannot switch on the lights, they cannot drive cars, they
Nothing.
cannot do anything.
Nothing.
But this is the essence of Shabbat. And the essence of Shabbat is a day of rest, not just to the individual, but also to the land, also to the animals. And there is a logic behind it, because in ancient times, people were working very hard during the weekdays. And to set a fire was not as easy as it is today. Today you take up the lighter, or you simply switch your gas and push one button. You have electric gas, so it's very easy. But in the past, you had to go to the wood, you had to cut the trees, and to carry the wood, and then to find a way to light the wood. It was it was a hard work. And that's the essence of Shabbat. Furthermore, Shabbat is also about, as you mentioned, family gathering. In my house, that was, and still pretty much, the only meal that we all eat together. And not just the family members, but I have grown-up children, so they come and join the Shabbat dinner table. And it's an opportunity to talk to each other, to relax from the week. No hurry, because everybody knows that the following day is a day of rest. We can sleep a little bit late. And it's a wonderful family gathering. And about the singing, yes, not in every house people sing. In houses of people that keep the tradition, they sing. Because before the Shabbat dinner, Jewish people usually go to synagogues.
Mm-hmm.
And here in Vilnius, there were over 106 synagogues before Second World War.
Yeah, it was like the Eastern Jerusalem.
Yeah. Out of which only one survived, the one synagogue in Pildydami.
Yeah.
So people who were passing by could hear the songs. Not only that, many of the shops that were owned by Jewish people were closed before the Shabbat. So people knew in advance that they need to do their shoppings in certain shops owned by Jewish people, because otherwise they will not be able to do so on the following day.
Right.
Grocery shops and others. So Lithuanians in general were very familiar with the Jewish tradition, because Jewish people lived everywhere. You name a city and town.
Oh,
and
yeah, definitely.
everywhere. So upon their return, there is this tradition of blessing the wine and blessing the
Yes.
Jewish bread. So, and before blessing, we sing a song. The song is Shalom Aleichem, Malachi HaShalom, Malachi Elyon, Mi Melech, Malchei Hamlachim, Akadosh Baruch Hu. And there are some more phrases, but this is the melody.
Yeah.
And you welcome the peace angels, and you welcome the Shabbat. And, it's kind of help to bring all people together. And then you bless the wine and the bread. And usually you also have a good dinner, because the Shabbat dinner is different than the other weekdays dinner. It's more rich and usually includes one or two, at least, meaty products and vegetables and side dishes.
You know what the most interesting thing? The singing. I heard some of the songs, and I just found out, after hearing them, I was like, oh my God, now I know where the Russians took their... Because the Russian, the Russian pop music, the old one, is like they have the same sounding as your songs, and I was like, oh, so that's where they got them from. Have you ever had that experience? Well, do you see the resemblance at all?
No.
No?
No.
What is the one thing that you miss about Israel when living in Lithuania? Apart from the family.
Well, I love fishing. My hobby is one of my hobbies is fishing.
Really? Okay.
And even though you have many opportunities to fish here in Lithuania, as you have thousands of lakes,
Yeah.
my style of fishing is a bit different. It's not sweet water. It's salty water fishing
Okay.
style. And I miss fishing along the Mediterranean. My fishing style is a bit dangerous, because I need rocky areas and I need the sea to work. It needs to be a little bit wavy. So this is something that I miss.
Okay. Are you a basketball fan at all?
I'm first a basketball player, and only afterwards I'm
You're a
also
basketball
a basketball
player.
fan. Yeah,
All right. You play basketball?
for many years.
All right. Which club are you rooting for?
Well, because of my military service, I didn't play in a club, but I was the captain of the military academy basketball team, and
Okay.
since then I'm playing as an amateur player, and I played in every capital that I was posted,
Oh,
including here, Lithuania.
Oh, so you're right at home.
Yeah, that's...
Which is your favorite basketball club back in Israel?
Well, Maccabi Tel Aviv was
Maccabi.
my favorite club, because it was not just a club, it was a national club.
Absolutely.
And when they won the famous game against CSKA, when Katachenko was playing, we were all very happy. We jumped into the pool in front of the Tel Aviv municipality building, and then the following year they won the European, for the first time, championship. That's why what we did when we just opened the embassy in 2015, you'll be surprised to hear, but we as an embassy organized a basketball tournament, a youth basketball tournament, and we did it in cooperation with Sharonas Marcellonis Basketball Academy.
Oh, yeah, great guy.
We brought the Maccabi Tel Aviv youth team and two more teams, one from Kaunas and the other one from Shele. And for 2 days, these youngsters were playing. We invited many people, and it was sponsored by the LKL, our friend Remigius Milashos, and some other good people. And we had a very, very professional tournament, which was also live broadcast in the Delphi Internet TV.
Yeah. Well, this is the good way to win over Lithuanian hearts. Just tell them you like basketball, and that's it. We're your friends to the end.
We are probably the most sporty embassies. It's not just about basketball. We also cooperated with the Beach Volleyball Federation, and for 2 years we cooperated in organizing the amateur night tournament. With the wheelchair tennis next month again, we are going to cooperate, and many other sport organizations and clubs here in Lithuania.
Last question. Žalgiris or Rytas?
When I'm in Kaunas, I'm supporting Žalgiris.
Yeah, that's a safe way to.
And when I'm in Kaunas and in Vilnius, I support.
Yeah, that's it. Well, if you're in Kaunas and you don't support Žalgiris, I have that experience.
And I saw the last game, the Mindigau Cup.
Oh yeah,
that was a very good one.
That was a very good one.
A very good
one. I made a lot of new enemies.
New enemies.
Yeah.
So I guess that you are a supporter of Fritas.
Yes, absolutely. I'm from Vilnius, so what can you do?
Good.
Ambassador, thank you so very much for coming. It was an absolute pleasure talking to you.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you, sir.
This is my country, my damn country. Give me my country, you can keep the rest.